Hi, this is Krista at The Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous paint box crochet blanket. It can also be a bed runner or a wrap. In this easy to follow step-by-step crochet tutorial, I show you how to crochet this paint box polka dot blanket using basic crochet stitches, so even if you're a beginner, you can do it. If English isn't your first language, you can click this gear on the video and scroll through to find your preferred dialect. And if you want to follow along with written pattern, all of my patterns are written in plain English and available on my website, secretyarnery.com. This easy to follow step-by-step crochet tutorial is available in both right and left-handed, so please check the description box down below to find the version that suits you best. Whether you drape it over your shoulders as a wrap for a night out or spread it over your bed as a stylish accent, this piece effortlessly blends comfort, fun, and whimsy. This stunning bed runner is solid stitches, so it's perfect for anyone who doesn't like holes in their crochet. For my paint box blanket, I used 4-weight worsted acrylic, or 10-ply if you're in Australia. Most of it is Savor from Ice Yarns, but I also have used some local Kenyan acrylic to get the color variety that I needed. This pattern would also work out great with a DK weight yarn or an 8-ply if you're in Australia. Just use the hook size suggested on the yarn label. I used 21 colors for my polka dots and 2 neutrals, one for the joining and one for the border. You'll need 15 grams of each color for your polka dots, 400 grams for the joining, and 200 grams for the border. I am using a 6mm crochet hook for this project. You will also need 21 stitch markers, a pair of scissors, and a needle for sewing in your ends. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where we left off, and let's get started. So go ahead and get all of your yarn colors together that you want to use for your polka dots, and let's make a flat circle. To make the flat circle, you can start either with a magic knot or a chain 3. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be doing a chain 3. So make a slip knot and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Into the very first chain you made. So you don't count what's on your hook and you don't count this little knot. We're just going to be looking for this stitch right on top of the knot, and we're going to go right into that stitch. It doesn't matter how many loops you get on the top of your hook. Just push your hook in. And now we want to arrange it into a nice U shape underneath our hook. And also lay your tail along that U shape and give it a bit of a pull. I'm holding on my yarn, some tension on my working yarn, and pulling that down to hold it open with my finger and thumb, and make a slip stitch. So that forms our ring. I'm still holding it open, finger and thumb, and chain 2. 1, 2. This does not count as anything. This is just a chain 2 to get our height. So wrap your yarn and 12 double crochets into the center of that ring, right where you're holding it open. So there's 1, 2, 3. If you're running out of space, you can grab that chain and the ring and slide your stitches back, and that'll give you a lot more room to work your stitches around. So keep going until you have 12 double crochets into the center of your ring. To count your stitches, ignore the chain 2, just count your real double crochets. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. When you have your 12 double crochets, we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first real double crochet. So ignore your chain 2. This here, we're going to ignore it. And right on top of that first real double crochet, that is where we're going to slip stitch. So put your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, and slip stitch. Chain 2. 1 and 2. And now we're going to work right into that same stitch. So right after our chain 2, there's a little space, a little stitch, and we're going to work right into that space. So wrap your yarn and 2 double crochets into that same stitch. 1 and 2. And now we're going to do 2 double crochets into each stitch, working all the way around. So each of these stitches gets 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. And now pause the video and keep going around doing 2 double crochets into each stitch all the way around until you get to where we started. When you get back to where you started, we're just going to count our stitches just to make sure. We need 24 for this round. So 12 double crochets for the first round and 24 for the second. And we're again ignoring that chain 2. So into each stitch there should be 2 double crochets. Now we're going to slip stitch again to the top of that first real double crochet. So not our chain 2. There's our first chain right down here and that little tiny stitch hiding. This is our second. Our first real double crochet is this big guy right here. And if you pull it up, you'll see that that is connected to that first real double crochet. So put your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, and slip stitch. To start round 3, chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to make 1 double crochet into that same stitch right here. So wrap your yarn, 1 double crochet. Into the next stitch, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Into the next stitch, 1 double crochet. And into the next, 2 double crochets. So we're alternating doing 1 double crochet and 2 double crochets all the way around for this row. So every other stitch is an increase. 1 double crochet, and then 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. So into the next stitch, 1 double crochet, and into the stitch after that, 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. So now pause the video and keep going around, alternating making 1 double crochet and 2 double crochets into each stitch all the way around until you get back to where we started. Into the last stitch before our join, you should end on an increase, so 2 double crochets into that stitch. That's just a little checkpoint to make sure that probably you did it right. And go ahead and count your stitches now. So for this round, we want 36 stitches. And now we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first real double crochet. So put your hook in, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, and slip stitch to join. We're going to start round 4 the same way. So chain 2, 1 and 2, and into that same stitch, right where our chain came from, we're going to do our first double crochet. So wrap your yarn and into that first stitch, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So double crochet, and then 2 double crochets. There's 1 and 2 into the same stitch. So there is 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. So into the next 2 stitches, 1 double crochet into each, 1 and 2, and into the next 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So we're spacing out our increases more and more each round, and this round the repeat is 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets. Like that. An easy way of remembering is just counting along. So we say 1, 2, and increase. So that is 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So 1, 2, increase. 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So pause the video and keep working your way around, doing 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, all the way around until you reach where we joined. Now into the last 3 stitches, it's kind of like a self-check. You want to make sure that you have your 1, 2, and increase into that last stitch. 1 and 2. Just like that. And now count your stitches for this round, ignoring your chain 2, and make sure that you have 48 stitches. So we finished round 4 by doing a slip stitch to the top of our first real double crochet right here. And make sure you get 2 strands of that stitch on your hook and slip stitch. To start round 5, chain 2, 1 and 2, and into this very first stitch, that is where we start our first double crochet. So wrap your yarn and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. And we're going to do 3 double crochets for this round in between our increases. So we've done 1, here is 2, here is 3, and into the next stitch our increase. So 2 double crochets into the same stitch. So 1, 2, 3, and increase. 1 and 2 into the same stitch. So we're going to keep going around this row, doing 3 double crochets in between our increases. So just count it out. 1, 2, 3, and an increase. So increases are 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Just like that. So pause the video and work your way all the way around, making 3 double crochets and then an increase, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. At the end of this row, you'll have 4 stitches left, and that's just right for our 1, 2, 3 and increase into the last stitch. If yours doesn't end like this, just go back and count your stitches. It doesn't really matter if you're off by a stitch here or there, it'll still be a circle. Just make sure that you end with 60 stitches for this round. Go ahead and count, make sure you have your 60 stitches for this round, and we're going to slip stitch again to the top of our first real double crochet. So make sure you get both strands of that stitch on your hook, bring your yarn back and just make a nice little slip stitch, chain 1 and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn down and snug that down to secure. If you worked over your tail in the beginning, you can cut that one off now. And sew in this tail also. For the border, we're going to be making these small polka dots, super easy to do. To make your polka dots, you can just use a small scrap of yarn, whatever matches the polka dots from your main blanket. And we're going to start with a chain 3, so just a slip knot and a chain 3. So 1, 2, and 3. We're going to slip stitch into that very first chain to join. Just pop your hook into that first chain. We want to make a little U shape. We want our tail following along with our chain, holding it along your work, and hold it open with your finger and thumb. And slip stitch to form a ring. Still holding it open, I'm not going to let go of that. And chain 2. 1 and 2. Now into the center of your ring, we're going to do 12 double crochets. So 12 double crochets into the center of your ring, and we are going to be going over our tail. There's 2, 3. So you can pause the video, keep working ahead. 12 double crochets into the center of your ring, and I'll meet you when we have them done. We're going to slip stitch into the top of that first double crochet to join. So into the top of the first double crochet, slip stitch to join, chain 1, and into that very same stitch right there, we're going to put 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. And now into each stitch all the way around. So our next stitch is right here, and all the way around each stitch we're going to do 2 single crochets into each stitch. So there's 1 and 2, into the next stitch, 2 single crochets, and into the next stitch, 2 single crochets. So you can pause the video, keep working around, 2 single crochets into each stitch, all the way around, and I will meet you when we get back to where we started. When we get back to where we started, we're going to slip stitch right into this stitch right there, just that first single crochet we made. So just pop your hook in and slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Now you can cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. If you worked around your center tail, we can just cut that one off. And our long tail, we're going to sew that in. So just bring it down into that center area and sew it around a little bit and then snip that one off as well. So pause the video and make all of your circles, 2 of each color for the middle if you're doing like mine. And I will meet you when all of your circles are done. To turn your circle into a square, we're going to look for our join. And you can see it here, where we have that line going up, where we did our chain 2, all the way up here with our chain 1, our slip stitch in chain 1. We're going to put our hook right in between those 2 stitches. So right in between the first double crochet and that chain 2. Just right in there. So put your hook in and grab a loop of your joining yarn and put it onto your hook. You want to leave a long enough tail to sew in with a needle, so 4 or 5 inches. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the back side of your work, and chain 2. 1, 2. If you join your yarn in a different way, you want to do a chain 3. Wrap your yarn and into that same stitch, 1 double crochet. Into the next stitch, 1 double crochet, and into the stitch after that, 1 double crochet. Now drop your tail, wrap your yarn into the next 2 stitches, 1/2 double crochet into each. So 1/2 double crochet into the next stitch, and 1/2 double crochet into the next stitch. Now we're going to do 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we're going to do the opposite of what we did when we started. So we're going to do 2 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. So there's 1 half double and our second half double. And now 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. There's our first double crochet and our second double crochet. So that just evens out what we've done along this side, and we're ready to do our corner into the next stitch. So our corners are always going to be 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, all into the same stitch, a chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same stitch. 1 and 2. So there's our corner. And now we're going to start our next side. So that starts with 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. So 1 and 2. 2 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. There's our first half double crochet and our second half double crochet. And now 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we're going to build back up to our corner, so 2 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch, half double, there's our first, here's our second, and then 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch, 1 and 2. And now we're going to do our corner into the next stitch. Corners are 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2 more double crochets all into that same stitch. 1 and 2. Now building down from our corner, so we're going to do 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. There's 1 and 2. 2 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. There's 1 and 2. And 6 single crochets along the side, 1 into each stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Building up to our next corner, we start with 2 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. There's our first. Here's our second, and now 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. There's our first, and here is our second. And into the next stitch, we do our corner. So corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all into the same stitch. So there's my first 2 double crochets and my chain 2. So finishing that with 2 double crochets. And now building down from our corner, so 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch. There's 1 and 2. 2 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. 1 and 2. And 6 single crochets along this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have 4 stitches left, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is for our 2 half doubles and our 2 double crochets. So wrap your yarn and into that next stitch, 1 half double crochet, 1 half double into the next stitch, and now our double crochets, 1 double crochet, and into the last stitch, 1 double crochet. And this little stitch here, that's our chain. It doesn't really count as anything, so we're going to ignore it. We're going to work right into our corner space right over here. And that's where we're going to finish our corner. So 2 double crochets into that same space that we started in, or that same stitch. 2 double crochets. Chain 1. And we're going to make a single crochet to join. So just the top of this chain that we made right here, we're going to do a 1 single crochet to join. And that's going to leave us in the middle of our corner. So put your hook in, bring your yarn back, and make 1 single crochet. And that finishes row 6, or our first row of turning it into a square. To start round 7, chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And into that same space, that corner space, 1 double crochet. Now 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Our first stitch is our chain, so I'm just going to make it into that big hole right there. And our second stitch, I'm going to pick up this front loop and match it up with that loop at the back. So our first double crochet goes into that chain, 1 double crochet. And our next one goes into that first real double crochet. So pick up that front loop, match it with the one at the back, and 1 double crochet. Now for round 7, we're going to be doing 3 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And now 8 single crochets, 1 into each stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8. So to build up to our corner, we start with 3 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch. 1, 2, and 3. And we have 2 stitches left That is for our double crochets, 1 into each stitch. So 1 double crochet and our second double crochet. And now into that corner space, we're going to do our corner. And corners are 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So there's 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Into the first 2 stitches, we're going to make double crochets, 1 into each stitch. So 1 double crochet into the first stitch, and 1 double crochet into the second. Now 3 half double crochets. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And now 8 single crochets, 1 into each stitch along the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8. We have 5 stitches left, so 3 half double crochets and 2 double crochets to build up to our corner. So 1 half double, our second half double, and our third half double. And now 2 double crochets, 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. So there is 1 and 2. Our corner, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets into that same corner space. And now we're going to work along this side, doing the same thing. 2 double crochets, 3 half doubles, 8 singles, 3 half doubles, and 2 doubles. So into the first stitch, double crochet, 1 and 2. Into the next 3 stitches, 1 half double into each, 1, 2, and 3. 8 single crochets, 1 into each stitch along the flat side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8. 3 half double crochets, 1 into each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And into the last 2 stitches, 2 double crochets, 1 into each. 1 double crochet and our second double crochet. Into our corner, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into that same corner space. 1, 2, chain 2, 2 more double crochets into that corner space. And now we're going to work along our last side. So we start with 2 double crochets, 1 into each stitch, 1 and 2, 3 half double crochets, 1 into each stitch, 1, 2, and 3, and now 8 single crochets along this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8. So we have 5 stitches left. The next 3 half double crochets to build up to our corner. 1, 2, and 3. And into the last 2 stitches, double crochets, 1 into each. So 1 and 2. Now we're back at the corner where we started. So we're going to finish our corner with 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to join. So we're just going to slip stitch right into that top of the chain 3, making sure to get 2 strands of that stitch on the top of our hook. So push your hook in and slip stitch to join. And that finishes row 7. You want to get all of your circles up to this stage. So go ahead and get all of your circles up to row 7. So they all have 2 rows of turning into a square. And sew in your tails. It does help. When you have all of your squares completed and your ends sewn in, we are ready to join up your squares. So lay out your blocks the way you want your blanket to be. So here is my first row, my second row, my third row, etc. And now stack them up the order you're going to crochet them. So we're going to start crocheting in our top corner. So I'm going to put that one first. So here is row 1, row 2, row 3, and you're going to do that for all of your rows. We're going to start with row 1. So put your other rows in order, just off to the side. So we're going to start with our very first block. So put the rest of your first row off to the side and get your joining yarn. Now find a corner, not the corner where we've done all of our joining, but find a different corner, doesn't matter which one. Pop in your hook, loop of your joining yarn onto your hook, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later, so about 4 or 5 inches. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, but just hold it along that corner, just along the top of your work, and chain 2, 1 and 2. That counts as our first double crochet. Wrap your yarn and 1 double crochet into that same corner space. And 1 double crochet into each stitch. So we're just doing double crochet all the way around this square. So 1 double crochet into each stitch, all the way along this side. Drop your tail after a couple stitches. We need to work it back in the opposite direction. So 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along, and I'll meet you when we get to the corner. When we get to your corner space, we're going to do our regular corner, which is 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, rotate your work a little bit so we can work along the next side, and 2 more double crochets into that same space, 1 and 2. So now keep going, making 1 double crochet into each stitch along the sides, and corners of 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets, all the way around this first block until you get back to where we started. If you're new to crochet, you can pop a stitch marker into the top of your first chain 3, and that'll just mark where we're going to join our yarn and finish this round. So now pause the video and keep going, making 1 double crochet into each stitch along the side, and into each corner space, 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. When you get back to that corner with your stitch marker, or the corner where we joined, just finish that off with our 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, remove your stitch marker, and slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to join, just right here, the top of the chain 3, 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook, and slip stitch. Chain 1 and cut your yarn. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And now this is how big our blocks are going to be. They'll still stretch once we put them together, or once we start using our blanket. But right now our blocks are 8.5 inches or 22 centimeters. And you can use that measurement to decide how many blocks you're going to need for your width and the height of the blanket you want to make. So now we're going to build our row along the top of our blanket. And we're going to join all of these blocks, the first row, on one side. So we're going to complete the double crochet round all the way around on 3 sides of our block. So with our next block, we're going to be joining. Do the same thing again. Put your hook into any corner, loop of yarn on your hook, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, holding it along the top of your work for a couple stitches, and chain 2. 1, 2. If you join your yarn in a different way, do a chain 3. 1 double crochet into the same space, and 1 double crochet into each stitch. So keep working your way around your second block, same as we did for our first block, all the way around, and we're going to stop leaving one side open. So instead of putting our stitch marker where we started our round, we're going to put our stitch marker into the corner before. And that's just going to mark where we're going to stop. We want one side left open so we can join as you go. So pause the video, work all the way around, 1 double crochet into each stitch, and corners 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. When you get to your stitch marker, we're just going to start our corners. We're just going to do 2 double crochets into that corner space. So 1 and 2, and we can take that stitch marker out. Now get the square you've already finished. It doesn't matter what side that you lay towards you, but put it above you in your workspace. Working on a desk or a table really helps, just because everything's flat and it doesn't move around. And chain 1. Now we're going to put our hook down into this corner space, the matching corner space, all the way down through our work. Hold your yarn, grab your yarn and bring it up through that space, turn your hook and slip stitch. So that is our very first join. Now we're going to do our double crochet back into our corner space to finish our corner. So there's our first double crochet of this side. Now I'm holding my yarn nice and tight, and bring your hook down, so fold your work towards yourself, and you'll see that very first stitch right here. That is our first stitch. So always make sure that you bring your hook down, or your hook can cover up that first stitch and you'll go into the second stitch. So bring your hook down into that first stitch, put your hook down into your work, grab a little bit of that yarn and bring it up, turn your hook and slip stitch to join. 1 more double crochet into that corner space. So that finishes our corner. Fold your hook down towards you, look for that next stitch right here. Put your hook down into your work, bring your yarn up and through, and slip stitch to join. Double crochet into your work, so into that first stitch, 1 double crochet. Bring your hook down and look for that next stitch right here. Put your hook down into your work, grab that yarn and bring it through, and slip stitch to join. Wrap your yarn, double crochet into your work. Bring your hook down, look for your next stitch right here. Put your hook down into your work, bring your yarn up, and slip stitch to join. Double crochet into your work, bring your hook down, look for your next stitch right here. Put your hook down into your work, bring your yarn up and through, and slip stitch to join. So there's our join so far. So we're going to be making a double crochet into the block we are joining, and a slip stitch into the same stitch above on the block we've already finished. So there's our slip stitch. So double crochet into your work, slip stitch into your finished block. Double crochet into your work, slip stitch into the block you've already finished. So we're just going to keep going along like this. I think of it as making letter I's. So I do my double crochet is my letter I. There's my double crochet or my letter I. And then I want to dot my I but with my slip stitch. So my slip stitch is the dot on top of my I. So you go double crochet or letter I and slip stitch or dot your I. So you just kind of keep working along your row, making sure you're going down into your work, and it ends up with this gorgeous, nice, flat join. And it's the exact same as just doing your regular row of double crochet, except you are dotting your I or making your slip stitch, and it's a really quick and easy way to join. So pause the video and keep working along this row, making your double crochet or your letter I into the block you're joining, and your slip stitch or the dot on your I into the block you've already finished. When you get close to your corner, I've done my last double crochet and my last slip stitch of the actual row. Now I just have my corner space left and my corner stitches above. So don't worry, it feels like it doesn't line up, but just keep going to the end and it will. So when you get to your corner space, you need to do your 2 double crochets into your corner space of the block you're joining. So the first one, bring your hook down and slip stitch into that next stitch to join. And your last double crochet into the block you're joining. And now instead of going into this last stitch here, that last stitch right before the join, if your stitch count doesn't line up and you need to go into this stitch, go ahead and do it. But generally, you just work straight into that corner space to finish it off. So that's kind of like a little safety stitch right there. If you need it, it's there. If you don't need it, you skip right over into that corner space and make your slip stitch. Chain 1. Rotate your work a little bit. Now find the top of your chain 3, right there, the top of your chain, and we're going to slip stitch to join. So put your hook in, 2 strands of that chain on your hook, and slip stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn, cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. So now we've done 2 of our polka dots together. We've joined one side. So now you're going to keep doing the same thing, just building the top row of your blanket. So doing 3 sides of your double crochet and joining on the one side. So keep going, joining all the blocks on one side on the top row of your blanket, and I will meet you when we are starting the second row. So ready to start the second row. I just laid out my polka dots to make sure that they're the same order that I want them to be in. And go ahead and just leave out the one you're going to be starting with on this side. And we're going to do the same thing as we did for joining our first row, except we're going to be joining down here. So go ahead and finish 3 sides of the square you're going to be joining next. So to start a new row, do double crochets on 3 sides of your next square and lay it down underneath the row that you've already completed. And the trick is we want to join kitty corner. We want to join into this block over here. Not straight above. We want to start our very first join into the corner space of our neighboring block. So I've done my 2 double crochets into that corner space. So chain 1 and into that neighboring block or that opposite space. And that is where we're going to start our slip stitch. So bring up that loop of yarn onto your hook. And now put your hook back down into the block you're going to be joining to and bring your yarn up. So there's 3 loops on your hook. Turn your hook and wiggle it through all of those stitches. Just like that. We want a nice tight join in our corners and double crochet into the corner space of the block you're joining. Now we can kind of relax our tension a bit because we've made that double crochet. Pull your hook down and work into that very first stitch with a slip stitch to join and double crochet back into the corner space. So you want to make sure your corners always have 2 double crochets into the corner space. So now we're just going to be joining the way we did for the first row. So slip stitch into the block you have finished. And double crochet into the stitch of the block you are working on. Slip stitch above double crochet below, all the way along. So now it's exactly like we did for our other joins. So just pause the video and keep working along, making a double crochet into your work, pulling your hook down and making a slip stitch into the next stitch above, all the way until you reach the corner. At the end of the row, we just have to finish off the way we normally did. So your corner gets the same 2 double crochets, 1 into a stitch, and that tail's right in the way, that's a bit awkward. Single crochet, and our last double crochet into the corner space. And this one is going to go straight into the space. So slip stitch into the space, and chain 1. Now we're going to slip stitch the top of the chain 3 to finish off. So right into the top of that chain, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook, and slip stitch to join, chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. To join the blocks in the center of a row, we're going to be joining on 2 sides, which means we're just going to be doing double crochet on 2 sides. So pause the video and do your double crochet onto 2 sides, and I will meet you when we start our join. So I've finished my double crochet on 2 sides, and I'm ready to join into this block here. So we're just going to start our first join, our first slip stitch, right over into the block kitty corner, or up and to the side. So get that into your working space. I've done my 2 double crochets, so chain 1. And now into that space of the neighboring block, bring your yarn up. Into the block you're going to be joining to, put your hook back down inside and bring that yarn up again. So you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Turn your hook and slip stitch through all of that to do your join. Wrap your yarn, double crochet into our space of the block we're working on. Now we can relax our tension and into that first stitch. So just pull your hook down so you can see that stitch. Put your hook down into that stitch and slip stitch to join. Wrap your yarn and double crochet back into that corner space. We need to have 2 double crochets into our corner. Fold your work down or bring your hook towards yourself and hook down into the next stitch. Slip stitch to join and double crochet into our first stitch. Slip stitch to join. And now keep going along this side, making your 1 double crochet into the block you're joining and slip stitching into the block you have completed all the way along until we get closer to the corner. When you get to your corner, we need to make sure we have our 2 double crochets into that corner space. So our first double crochet, and this one goes into the stitch. Just pull your hook down and look for that stitch right here, and slip stitch to join. And our last double crochet into the corner, and this one's going to go into the spaces. So we finished our last double crochet of that corner. So down into the first space of the block we just joined, down into the block across, bringing it up. Rotate your work. We always want the block we are joining to up above us in our workspace. And down into that last corner. So we've gone into 3 corners and we have 4 loops on our hook. So now rotate your hook a little bit so the hook part is facing down and wiggle it through all of those stitches. Chain 1, just to secure all of that together. And now work into our corner again. We need 2 double crochets into our corner space on this side. So there's our first double crochet. Bring your hook down and into the first stitch, your slip stitch. Slip stitch to join. And into the corner space again. Remember, we need 2 double crochets into each corner on each side. So So there's 2, and slip stitch into the block we have finished to join. And now keep working along this row, going into each stitch with a double crochet and going into the block you have finished with a slip stitch, all the way along until you get to the end of this side. When you get to the end of your row, just remember you have to put those 2 double crochets into this side of your corner. So our first double crochet into the stitch, and our second double crochet, we're going to slip stitch into the space. And that's going to finish off this side. So slip stitch and chain 1. Rotate your work a little bit. And into the top of your chain, just that stitch, we're going to slip stitch to join. So 2 strands of that stitch on our hook and slip stitch to join. Chain 1, cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. To join the last block of your row, we're going to be joining again on 2 sides. So complete 2 sides of the row 8 or the double crochet row on your last block of the row, and I'll meet you for the join. So now I've completed my 2 sides of round 8, my double crochets, and I'm ready to join right up here. So I've done my 2 double crochets and chain 1. Now go down into that space and make 1 slip stitch to join, and now into your corner. So our first double crochet, pull your hook down and look for that stitch, slip stitch to join. Our second double crochet into the corner, slip stitch to join. So pause the video and make 1 double crochet into the block you're joining and 1 slip stitch into the block you have finished, all the way along until you reach your corner. So keep working your way along to get to that corner space. Into the corner are 2 double crochets. So our first double crochet just gets slip stitched normally into that stitch. It's a regular slip stitch. And our second double crochet into the corner, this is the one that's going to go into all the spaces. So get yourself situated. So we're going to put our hook first into this stitch here, the block we have already joined to. Then across, we're going to put it into the space kitty corner, and then we're going to put it into the space of the side of the block we're going to be joining to. So we're going to do 1, 2, and 3. So into the first corner space, bring your yarn up, into the corner space across, put your hook down and bring your yarn up, rotate your work. We always want the block we're joining to above us in our workspace. And now down into the block we're going to be joining to next. So we have our 4 loops on our hook. We want it to be tight, but not so tight that we can't get our hook through. So rotate your hook so the hook part is facing down and wiggle it through all those stitches. Just like that. Wrap your yarn. I'm still holding my yarn nice and tight so my corner stays snug, and double crochet into that corner space. Bring your hook down and slip stitch into that first stitch. Wrap your yarn, 1 more double crochet into that corner space. Always remember our corners need 2 double crochets on each side. And now keep working along this way, just the way we always have been, making a double crochet into the block we are joining, and a slip stitch into the next stitch of the block we have finished. So pause the video and keep working along this side, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. If you have a row that doesn't line up, you don't have enough stitches on the block you are joining, go back and check that very first stitch right after the corner, and sure enough, I did not go into this stitch. So that is a trouble spot where just keep an eye to make sure you've always gone into it. And then go back and just pop that stitch in. Now when you get to your corner, your stitches will all line up. So double crochet into your space and slip stitch into the next stitch. And our second double crochet into the space, into our corner space. And that's going to slip stitch into the corner space of the block we have finished. chain 1, rotate your work. We're going to slip stitch to the top of our chain to join. Chain 1 again, and cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug this down to secure. So now we've joined 2 rows of our blanket, and we're just going to keep going, joining row after row after row until all of our blocks are joined. So check the timestamps in the description box down below for starting a row, working in the middle of a row, or finishing a row. And then keep going until you've joined all of your blocks, and I'll show you how to put a finishing edge around your entire blanket. When you have joined all of your polka dots together, or all of your squares, also handy to do your ends. If you can just keep up on that, it'll help you at the end. We are ready to do 1 row all around the edge, and that is going to space out our border, or whatever we're doing around the edge. It'll just make it match, because here we have 2 rows of double crochet, and around the edge we only have 1. So we're going to put 1 more row of double crochet, but I'll show you how to keep your stitch count right so it doesn't start waffling out and turn into like a big floral ruffle around the edge. It'll stay nice and flat. So get the same color yarn as you did to turn your circles into squares, and we're going to start in a corner. It doesn't matter which corner. So find that corner space and put your hook inside, loop of your joining yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail and just hold it along the top of your work for a couple stitches, and chain 2. 1, 2. If you join your yarn in a different way, do a chain 3. Wrap your yarn, 1 double crochet into that same corner space, and into our first stitch, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along. I drop my tail after a couple stitches so I can work it in the opposite direction going back so it doesn't wiggle out later. So drop your tail and 1 double crochet into each stitch. So pause the video and make 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along until we get to our first join. So I've worked into the last stitch, and my next stitch will be into this corner space. So we're going to go into each of these corner spaces, but we're going to make a decrease. So start your first double crochet into the first space. So bring your yarn back, wrap and take off 2, leaving those last 2 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn and start your second double crochet into the other side of the join, that next space. Start your double crochet, wrap your yarn and take off 2. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops. So you're just finishing those double crochets together and turning 2 stitches into 1 stitch. And now keep going, making 1 double crochet into each stitch. And I'll meet you at the next join. So at the next join, start your double crochet into the first space, leaving it on your hook, those last 2 loops. Start your second double crochet on the other side into the second space. 3 loops on your hook, wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops. So we're going to do that for every join, and that is going to keep our stitch count nice and even. That's the trick to having a nice flat border. So keep going like that all the way along, and I'll meet you at the next corner. When you get to your corner, we're just going to be doing a regular corner, so that is 2 double crochets into that corner space, 1 and 2, chain 2, rotate your work to start the new side, and 2 more double crochets into that same corner space, 1 and 2. And remember, after your corners, your very first stitch is right here. So it can be easy for these corner stitches to kind of cover up that first stitch, but just pull your stitches back so you can always see that first stitch, and remind yourself to go into that very first stitch after your corners. Just like that. So now keep going, making 1 double crochet into each stitch. And for your joins, start your double crochet on one side of the join and start your second double crochet on the second side of the join and finish them together. So keep going like that all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to the corner where we started, We'll just finish that corner with 2 double crochets. 1 and 2, chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain to join. Just going to slip stitch right into that top of the chain, getting 2 strands of that stitch on your hook. So slip stitch to join, chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So sew in your tails and you're finished. So starting on the side that you want your polka dots to be, or the skinny side of your blanket, go ahead and put your hook into your corner with the pretty side of your blanket facing up. Loop of your joining yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail and chain 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip the first 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to work into the 4th. So into the 4th stitch, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Now we're going to work into the 3rd. And this is what we're going to do all the way around our blanket. Single crochet into the 3rd stitch, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the 3rd stitch, chain 2, skip 2, 1, 2, into the 3rd, 1 single crochet, chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the 3rd, and we're going to keep going along this edge of our blanket all the way along. So pause the video and keep doing a chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the 3rd, all the way along this side until you reach the corner. When we get to our corner, do your regular chain 2 and skip 2 into the corner space, 1 single crochet, chain 2, 1 and 2, rotate your work a little bit, and 1 more single crochet into this corner. So that is going to be your corners, single crochet, chain 2, and single crochet. Chain 2 again, 1, 2, and right after our corners we're going to skip this first stitch as well. So we're going to skip 3, and that helps us line up into our corners. So skip 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to go right into this 4th stitch right here. So that's what we're going to do after our corners, just to make sure that we always end in our corners, just to make sure our corners always line up. So now keep working along your blanket, doing a chain 2, skip 2, single crochet into the 3rd, and corners of single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, skip 3. So that is how we're going to work all the way around our blanket. So pause the video and I will meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where you joined, just finish up that side. So your chain 2 and a single crochet into that same corner space. Chain 1, and now we're going to use a single crochet to join. So we're going to go right in between the legs of that first stitch we made. So into that first stitch, bring your yarn back and make 1 single crochet. So that is going to leave us in the middle of that corner, a lot better than a slip stitch would. Chain 1 and turn your work. Now into that same space, that corner space right there, we are going to make 1 single crochet. Into the stitch, 1 single crochet. Into the space, 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. Into the stitch, 1 single crochet, and into the space, 2 single crochets. 1 and 2. So we're going to work along our blanket, making 1 single crochet into the stitch and 2 single crochets into each space, all the way along. So pause the video and keep going, making 2 single crochets into the space and 1 single crochet into the stitch, all the way along until you reach the corner. When you reach your corner, still do those 2 double crochets into the space before and your single crochet into the stitch. And now your corners get 1 single crochet, a chain 2, Rotate your work a little bit so you can work along the next side. And one more single crochet into that same corner space. And one single crochet into that stitch. Just like that. And now keep going, making your 2 single crochets into each space and 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. And corners are single crochet into the stitch, single crochet into the space, chain 2, single crochet into the space, and single crochet into the stitch. So keep going like that all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we joined. When you get back to where you joined, we're going to make 1 single crochet into that stitch right at the beginning. That counts as our single crochet into the stitch. And this is going to be our corner. So we're going to do our chain 1, and we're going to single crochet into the top of that first stitch right here. We're going to join right there. So put your hook in and single crochet to join. That lines us up right in the center of our corner. And chain 2. 1 and 2. Turn your work. Into the space, wrap your yarn, 1/2 double crochet. And 1/2 double crochet into each stitch. All the way along the side of your blanket. So keep working along this side, making 1/2 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when you get to your corner. So work into that stitch right before the corner, 1/2 double crochet, and out into the corner, 1/2 double crochet, chain 2, and rotate your work. Wrap your yarn and 1 more 1/2 double crochet into that space, and 1/2 double crochet into that first stitch. And now keep going, making 1/2 double crochet into every stitch, and your corners are 1/2 double crochet, chain 2, and 1/2 double crochet. So pause the video and keep working all the way around, and I will meet you when you get back to where we started this row. When you reach back to where you joined, right into this corner space, 1/2 double crochet, chain 1, rotate your work a little bit, and we're going to make our single crochet right into the top of that chain. So right there, and we want to get 2 strands on the top of our hook. So single crochet to join. And now chain 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is the short side of my blanket, so I'm not turning my work. We want to go back along the short side of our blanket. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and 1 double crochet into this very first stitch. Right into that hole, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet into this next stitch right here, 1 double crochet, and now 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along this row. So pause the video and keep going, making 1 double crochet into each stitch until you reach the end of this row. Into the corner space, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2, 1, 2. If you chain tightly, you can do a chain 3, and turn your work. Now we're working back along this side, doing 1 more row of double crochets. We're going to make our first double crochet into this second stitch right here, because our chain 2 or chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. So we're going into this next stitch right here. So 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. At the end of your row, you have 1 last double crochet to work into right here. So 1 double crochet into the last stitch. So now get your stitch markers out. We want to mark out every 5th stitch and even it out from both sides. So for mine, I skipped 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to start my polka dots into the 4th stitch. So I put my stitch marker and then skip 4 stitches and into the 5th. There is 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is number 5. And keep doing that all the way along. One stitch marker into the 5th stitch all the way along. And you want to end up with the even amount on the other end. So both of your ends are equal. It doesn't have to be 3 stitches, it can be 4 stitches, it can be 5 stitches, but you want to just make sure that both ends of your blanket, your polka dots, will be starting or finishing at the same stitch. Into this very first stitch right here, that's where we're going to start our single crochets. So 1 single crochet into that very first stitch, and 1 single crochet into each stitch until we reach our stitch marker. You can take your stitch marker out, 1 single crochet into that stitch, and our stitch markers, that marks where we're going to be adding our polka dot. So grab your first polka dot, and you want to look for where we did our join. This little wonky bit up here, there's our chain. So we just want to go into any of those stitches, it doesn't matter, but we want to always be joining to this wonky bit. So find a stitch near that wonky join and get your yarn in front of it. So you want your hook to be here with your yarn in front and your polka dot to be just touching like this. Grab your yarn and slip stitch. Single crochet into the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, take your stitch marker out, and 5. Get your next polka dot, look for that join right up here, put it on your hook, grab your yarn and make sure it's all lined up like a sandwich. So we want our hook, our loop with our working yarn laying right in the middle like a sandwich, and your polka dot on top. And just grab your yarn and slip stitch. 1 single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, take your stitch marker out, and number 5. Grab your next polka dot, look for that wonky bit right here. So we can go into any of those stitches along this area. Put it onto your hook, get your sandwich looking great, so you have your blanket, your working yarn, and your polka dot. And slip stitch. Now keep going like this, 1 single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Grab your next polka dot, look for the wonky bit where we joined, put it onto your hook, get your sandwich organized. So blanket, working yarn, polka dot, and 1 little slip stitch to join. So pause the video and keep working along, doing your 5 single crochets and slip stitching your polka dot to join. Keeping track of your sandwich, making sure it's all lined up, and that'll keep our join looking exactly the same and super cute, hanging forward. And I'll meet you at the end of this row. At the end of your row, when you've joined all of your polka dots, we're going to make our last single crochet into the top of that chain. So 1 single crochet, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. So find the other end of your blanket. Pretty side facing up. We want to do our extra 2 rows of double crochet on this end as well. Find your corner, working in to the front of your blanket, the front side. Put your hook into the corner space. Loop of yarn on your hook. Bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail and chain 2. 1 and 2. If you joined your yarn in a different way, chain 3. Wrap your yarn and 1 double crochet into that first stitch. And 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way along. So keep working along this edge, making 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you when you get to your corner. At the end of your row, there is this double crochet to work into right here. So work into your last stitch. 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into that corner space. Just like that. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn your work. If you chain tightly, you can chain 3. Our chain counts as our first double crochet, so we're not going to be working into this first stitch. We're going to start into the second stitch right here. So wrap your yarn and into the second stitch, 1 double crochet, and 1 double crochet into every stitch all the way along this side. So pause the video, 1 double crochet into each stitch, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. So there's their last double crochet, and we're ignoring that chain again because we want our edge to stay nice and straight. So now get your stitch markers out. We want to mark out every 5th stitch and even it out from both sides. Into this very first stitch right here, that's where we're going to start our single crochets. So 1 single crochet into that very first stitch, and 1 single crochet into each stitch until we reach our stitch marker. You can take your stitch marker out, 1 single crochet into that stitch, and our stitch markers, that marks where we're going to be adding our polka dot. So grab your first polka dot. So find a stitch near that wonky join and get your yarn in front of it. Grab your yarn and slip stitch. Single crochet into the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, take your stitch marker out, and 5. Get your next polka dot, look for that join right up here, put it on your hook, and just grab your yarn and slip stitch. So pause the video and keep working along, doing your 5 single crochets and slip stitching your polka dot to join, and I'll meet you at the end of this row. At the end of your row, when you've joined all of your polka dots, we're going to make our last single crochet into the top of that chain. So 1 single crochet and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video right there, and stay hooked.